Hey folks, how's it going today? It's 10:42 in the AM. Do you know where your parents are at? This little thing I've been wanting to do for a little while. My perspective as a contractor. I'm going to give you some of the realities of it. Not going to go in depth on different things. It's mock nicks. People who are in the game know exactly what I'm talking about. But I also wanted to dispel some myths. Now, back in the day when I started, 05, 06, January of 05 till March of 06, that was the days of many splendid dollars. A slick dude could make $750 a day. Somebody that's just average, they could make $500 a day. And that was real money. I'm not saying it's not real money now. Any job's a job. But people come into the game. It's usually dudes just out of the military. And this is what depressed pricing. Companies, and I'm going to name names, like SOC, EODT, they started wanting to use people as employees, or they would use foreign contractors. And they started offering, this is about 09 when it started, and they started offering like bottom dollar pricing. And I was just like bored, so I took a job with another bro of mine. We both were out of there, toot sweet. Not saying who I worked for, but we realized that we don't step out of our doors for under 10K. Now, with that being said, because I've been doing it so long, over a decade, that's 13 years, I took a couple year break. What I found is that you can take a temperature on a government. Now, first, I want to make sure you understand something about pay before I get into that. If you work for the U.S., you work for the Brits, payday's guaranteed. You're going to get paid as long as you're working for the government itself. If you're working for a foreign contractor for a government, your final paycheck's usually what you'll get fucked on. That's a reality of it. As long as you know it and you plan for it, it should never be an issue. And yes, I've taken jobs working for U.S. interest through foreign companies. Never against my government, only for their interest. Especially after 09, when I realized sometimes me and the government's interests don't align, i.e. the way they want to do things. And so I'll just go work for a foreigner who's working for them. And that way I can get the job done properly and not have to deal with the monkey move up bullshit. And yes, I played the game of monkey move up. Been a window licker all the way to a site security manager, to a TL, and a 2IC in PSD. So I've done both static and PSD. You have to know what you're doing on both of them. Nobody's an expert. You have some slick dudes that know a lot, that can sling lead, can do all the cool things. But everybody has a weakness, just being very honest. And the deal is, when you're working as a contractor, there has to be honesty, there has to be trust, because if there's a weakness, then you compensate for it. I have a weakness, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I do have a weakness. And everybody who has worked with me knows what that weakness is. I'll tell you an easy one that's identifiable is I need to wear glasses. Since I was 40, I think I lost my vision in Afghanistan. And it's not my shooting vision, it's reading vision. So I sounded like a complete and total retard when I'd get an op order and have to hand it to my 2IC and say, hey man, can you read that? Why can't you read it? I can't see. Or I can't read. And he just laughed. And so he would read for me. And I got through that mission. It's never affected me shooting, but it does affect. If my glasses are gone, guess what? I'm not reading anything because my arm just didn't get long enough. And they never make the damn letterhead big enough for me to see without glasses. Anyways, so there's something, just a weakness to point out how stupid it can be. But honestly, if you lose your glasses and you need them to read, you may have problems seeing your odometer. You may have problems seeing other things in the vehicle that you need to see, or something, a light pops on and you're not quite sure what it is because you can't make out the fine line detail. That's just a reality, and you have to know that weakness, and so does your teammates. Now, with that being said, because of that, you're working in a small group, and I've done in 0506, I did everything from PSD, site security, all the way to instructing Iraqi police. That was just the thing I was doing at the time. And I loved it. It was a great job. Made lots of money. Lots of coin. But see, these new guys coming in, they're slick. They know what they're doing. Some of them. And some of them are just, I've run into a dude that was a, what the hell was he? He worked on a MLRS system. And he was like the commander's driver, and that's how that gave them the reason that they could hire him. He was a decent sort. That's all I'll say. I'm never going to talk smack about anybody I've worked with or the companies I've worked for. I'll just say that companies during that time, and after 09 and on, when they wanted to make you an employee, that's always a red flag. You're not an employee. You're a contractor. When you're an employee, you fall into the corporatocracy. And that's a bad move for somebody who's in this line of work, because then they try to run it like the military, and you cannot run any contract like the military. You have to have your people able to have even flow. You have to have them to be able to roll with whatever is presented to them. They also have to be moral, but you also have to understand you're working in an unhealthy state. So when you get your float money, some of that float money will go to giving payoffs different places in different provinces or wherever you're working in an unhealthy state. Don't do it in a healthy state. It's ridiculous. But that's just something that has to be done. Otherwise, your client may get attacked just because you didn't pay somebody, especially police chiefs, shit like that. That's real. That's a reality in this game. With that being said, you see these dudes, and I understand both sides of it. Hard cars, that's any up armored vehicle. Yeah, they're slick. They'll withstand a whole lot of abuse, but they all tend to look the same. There are some low profile hard cars. I've seen some really good ones where dudes would just grab some vehicles. I'm not going to get into operational kind of things. I will on one thing. In Iraq, we got a taxi, which, you know, the yellow fendered vehicles, everybody remembers those who was there. We got a Toyota minivan, all blacked out. And we had a Hilux pickup, and we could roll in that. And some of the vehicles, I'm not getting into how, but armor plating was put, but discreetly. But we used to get attacked in hard cars all the time. You'd always get the errant round shot at you, whatever, right? But with a nondescript car that looks like anybody's car, and you got 3 of them rolling quickly, until you get into a town like Baghdad or Mosul, or actually Al Qud itself, or at Diwania. Then you get into traffic. Same thing in Kabul. Certain parts of Panjshir, just because of the road narrowness. Then all of a sudden the vast areas of Kandahar province. You know, these things you have to take into account. And everybody thinks it's going to be cool, you're going to be shooting it up. No, that's not your job. Your job is to keep your client safe on a PSD, period. And that means you're going to run away. If you have to stand and fight, then shit just got so bad that it's going to be a bad day for everybody. More than likely. And when you do take on a client, that client needs to know that your return trip is not guaranteed. Theirs is. And what I mean by that is that you and your team have to be on lock, that especially a TL, whatever, that the client's safety is paramount. And that means if they do some fucking stupid shit, and some of my clients have, you have to take appropriate measures, even if that means get in the car now. I'm not done doing what I'm supposed to do. No, you're getting in the car now, and you may have to physically move them into the car. I've had to do that. Now on static security, I'll never forget, most of the static security gigs I've had has been with third-party nationals or the nationals of that state, i.e. if I'm in Afghanistan, I'm working with Afghanis, Afghanistan personnel. Anyways, the thing about that is their level of training is not going to be that high. It's not going to be that high in standard, but they will fight usually. When you're dealing with third-party nationals or locals, you have to be very ginger in your approach. You can't come off as the ugly American. That's one of the reasons why I didn't really like working for a lot of American companies, is especially when the money went down, because you had a harder time keeping people or having people understand you can't think like American. You have to think like the Brits. The Brits are very, and same with the South Africans, and an Icelander and a Norwegian. I'm not going to leave none of them out. They are very good at feeling comfortable around the locals. Even if you're carrying a gun, you have to feel comfortable. And that means you're not finger on the trigger trying to look like, I don't know, whatever you think a daggone contractor does. I just posted a picture. This is one where we were bringing in new students, and so yes, we're outside the front gate, and I did have to look American, wear the 511 tux, as James in the World coined it. He coined that phrase. And sometimes you will have to wear a loosely considered uniform. I mean, it's hard to explain on uniformity, but sometimes you do have to do that. It's not the best, but sometimes you have to, just for appearances. Especially, you can see big army in the background. So that's another thing that I can tell you. But you know, when you go and you change and you try to look like an indigenous person, especially if you're rolling on a PSD with indigenous people and you're in an indigenous vehicle, the only thing that you see from the outside, and you'd have to be very close, and usually they don't like to spring their traps last minute, is that secondary mirror where the TL or the assistant driver or the 2IC, whoever's there, can also keep an eye on the rear besides the driver. And then you have the little panic button thing that you see on the dash. But if you look and see how that's arranged, it's very hard to see until you're right up on somebody. When you're going through a town, you can always pull that little panic button, put it down next to the vehicle. I would never take the mirror off. If something like that happens, just drop your visor down a little bit, and that way it'll sort of obscure the mirror until you're right up on people. And sideways obscure too. But these are things you have to think of. Because remember, even that picture, that was a staged picture where we were getting ready to roll. And I said, take a picture real quick. You know, got the selfie. And then we bounced right after it. But I got my parkour on looking like a geek. And rolling. Will you have to use firearms? Sometimes you will. You have to be ready for that. It doesn't mean you're never going to have moments to relax, like this picture. Somewhat in a walled area. It's an orphanage. Al-Qaeda had been pacified by this time. And all my Iraqi cadre that you see, I knew. I wasn't dealing with actors I did not know and trust. That's the reason why you have to feel very comfortable with your people and act comfortable, because they can spot if you're acting scared, timid, whatever. And you also have to act like a man. You know, the video games, I have a funny story on that, but I'm not going to get into it on this because it's just about the realities of contracting. Video games make it seem like all this, that, and the other. You have moments of terror, but most of the time, it's just doing your job. And there is a job to be done. There are papers that you have to fill out. There's papers you have to read. You have to read your sitcom. You have to read what situations are going on around. Your INSOM comes in, your intelligence summary, you have to be on that. And there's a lot that you have to pass down to your men, because you have to have the flow. If you're leading or you're following, that flow of information must flow to everybody. And there's a reason for that, because just like in the military, there are some similarities. Just like in the military, if I get gacked, that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't step into my place seamlessly. And if you're a leader, that's your job, to make somebody else. It could be your 2IC all the way down to your driver who can carry it out and finish the mission. There is no reason that the mission should fail because of one person, including the lead man. Now, with that being said, once you saw money get lessened, you saw a lot of dudes just say, oh, I'm done. And I did, you know. But the nice thing is that there is a freedom to it. 05 and 06 was probably about the last time where you could work for state, justice, whoever you were working for, and you'll just get a phone call or you'll get an email saying, hey, you want to go somewhere? Are you working? Nah, I'm not working. Well, you want to go? What's the job? You know, these people that want to know how much, that just means they're new to the game. How much? It's just not proper etiquette. You got to know what the game is, what the job is, where you're going to be. Is that an area you're familiar with? If not, can you spin up on it quick enough? What kind of support you're going to have? Are you going to have to handle support and logistics? You know, all this comes down to reality. because you don't have big army with you everywhere. You don't have big Marine or big America or big England. That's just the reality of it. Now what I'll say is that yes, you get to travel. That's some good stuff, man. Traveling, checking places out. Had a great time with my brothers. This is from back in the day. You know, we all got together. And most of us have been contracting. Even the people on the other side of the wall that I knew. Yeah, I had it like that back in the day. So, there's a little bit of an in brief on the reality. For the young people that think they want to do it and think they know everything about it, it's a critique of it, but not done in a... Notice I haven't mentioned anybody's names, but I'm sure the people could figure out who I'm talking about. But I will not out them in public. I will not name and shame. It's just not my way. But there you go. You got a little bit of insight. If you have questions, type them in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and get notifications, and share if you want. I don't care. You may think it's all bullshit. There might be people that disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. Throw it in the comments. If you know something better than I do, I've been doing it over a decade, and I'm nobody special. All I am is a regular guy, and that's all I claim to be, and that's all I've ever been. But I do have a flawless record still, because I pick my jobs. I've been burned on final pay. That's the only burn I've ever had. And I only had one fucked up mission, and I still made it a success. And these people that talk about single man missions, they're all fucking bullshit. And I can tell usually when they start saying this, that, and the other. First off, it rarely happens. And when you have an idiot paymaster that is burning you consistently by the shit that he's pulling, and he'll know who he is. He wanted me to have a big project come out of it. He wanted me to do basically look and see a feasibility of what he wanted to do with his project. And then he wanted to take it in directions that I wasn't comfortable with, so I had to waive everybody that I said, if it rolls, it rolls. That's another thing. Bring your brothers in on it. But if you find out there's fuckery afoot, you do not bring them into fuckery. And it may cause ass hurt, and trust me, it does. And I've done it with other missions too, where I thought maybe I had somebody that was good to go, and then they turn out to fucking be fuck all. And I just have to cut bait and tell them, nope, sorry, you're not going to have this job. But that's from my perspective. So keep sitting on the big orange couch, popping your cold libation, or drinking your tea or coffee. It matters not. Just enjoy life. It's too short. And that's the best thing about doing this in Kaisers Kastle. I keep it as real as I can so you can enjoy a little bit of the physical manifestation of the war room. Have a great day. God bless.